The morning sun cast long shadows across Windsor Castle as King Charles sat in his private study, carefully reviewing a stack of official documents. His reading glasses perched on the edge of his nose as he examined each paper with the precision that had become his trademark since ascending to the throne. The weight of the crown had brought with it countless responsibilities, but this particular decision had been weighing heavily on his mind for weeks. Outside his window, the grounds were bustling with the usual activity of palace staff preparing for another day of royal duties. Charles could hear the distant sound of horses being exercised in the royal stables, a sound that always brought him comfort. Today, however, his mind was elsewhere, focused on a decision that would undoubtedly create ripples throughout the royal family and beyond. The document before him was unlike any other he had signed in his reign. It was a formal decree, written in the traditional language that the monarchy had used for centuries, but its contents were thoroughly modern and controversial. Charles had spent countless hours discussing this matter with his most trusted advisors, weighing the pros and cons, considering the potential backlash, and ultimately deciding that it was the right thing to do. Kate Middleton, the Princess of Wales, had proven herself to be an invaluable asset to the royal family. Her grace under pressure, her dedication to charitable causes, and her ability to connect with people from all walks of life had not gone unnoticed. Charles had watched her grow from a nervous young woman thrust into the spotlight to a confident and capable member of the royal family. Her work with children's charities, mental health awareness, and environmental causes had earned her respect both within the palace walls and among the British public. The king recalled the many conversations he had had with William about Kate's role in the family's future. His son had spoken passionately about his wife's contributions and her potential to help modernize the monarchy while still respecting its traditions. Charles had seen firsthand how Kate had handled the intense scrutiny that came with marrying into the royal family, and he admired her resilience and dignity. But this decision was not just about recognizing Kate's contributions. It was also about the future of the monarchy itself. Charles understood that the institution needed to evolve to remain relevant in the modern world. The British public expected their royals to be more accessible, more relatable, and more in touch with contemporary issues. Kate embodied these qualities in ways that few others in the family could match. The title he was about to bestow upon her was historically significant. It had not been granted to anyone outside the immediate line of succession for over a century. The palace historians had spent weeks researching the precedents and protocols, ensuring that every detail was properly documented and justified. The legal implications had been thoroughly reviewed, and the constitutional experts had given their approval. Charles set down his pen and walked to the window. Gazing out at the manicured gardens that stretched as far as the eye could see, he thought about his late mother, Queen Elizabeth, and what she would have thought about this decision. She had always been a traditionalist, but she had also understood the need for the monarchy to adapt to changing times. He believed she would have supported his choice, even if she might have approached it differently. The king's private secretary knocked softly on the door before entering with a steaming cup of tea and the morning newspapers. The headlines were filled with the usual mixture of political news, celebrity gossip, and royal commentary. Charles barely glanced at them, his mind still focused on the task at hand. He knew that within hours of announcing his decision, these same newspapers would be filled with analysis, speculation, and probably criticism. He returned to his desk and picked up the golden pen that had been used by monarchs for generations to sign important documents. The weight of it in his hand reminded him of the gravity of his position and the responsibility that came with every decision he made. This particular decision would affect not just Kate, but the entire royal family, and he was acutely aware of the potential consequences. Charles had already informed William of his intentions during a private meeting the previous week. His son had been surprised but ultimately grateful for the recognition of his wife's contributions. They had discussed the timing of the announcement and the best way to present it to the public. William had assured his father that Kate would be honored by the gesture and would continue to serve the monarchy with the same dedication she had always shown. The Queen Consort, however, had not been informed of the decision. Charles had deliberately chosen to keep this information from Camilla, knowing that she would likely object. Their relationship had been tested many times over the years, and while they had found a way to work together effectively, there were still areas where they disagreed. Charles suspected that this would be one of those areas. Camilla had her own vision for the monarchy and her role within it. She had worked hard to earn the respect and acceptance of the British public, overcoming the controversies of her past to become a valued member of the royal family. Charles understood her perspective, but he also believed that his decision about Kate was correct and necessary for the future of the institution. The clock on the mantelpiece chimed 11 times, reminding Charles that he had other appointments scheduled for the day. But first he needed to complete this task. He took a deep breath, positioned the document correctly on his desk, and carefully signed his name with the traditional flourish that would make this decree official. As the ink dried on the paper, Charles felt a mixture of satisfaction and apprehension. He had made a decision that he believed was in the best interests of the monarchy and the country, but he also knew that it would not be universally popular. The coming days would test his resolve and his ability to defend his choice against the inevitable criticism that would follow. The king placed the signed document in a secure folder and handed it to his private secretary with instructions for its immediate implementation. The wheels of the royal bureaucracy would now begin to turn, and within hours the news would be public. There would be no going back now, and Charles steeled himself for the storm that was about to break over the royal family. The news broke at precisely 2 o'clock in the afternoon, just as the palace had planned. The official announcement was released simultaneously to all major news outlets, ensuring that no single publication could claim an exclusive. The carefully worded statement explained that His Majesty the King had been pleased to bestow upon Catherine, Princess of Wales, the ancient and prestigious title of Duchess of Cambridge in her own right, independent of her marriage to Prince William. Within minutes, the story was trending on social media platforms around the world. Royal correspondents scrambled to provide context and analysis, while photographers rushed to capture any glimpse of the newly honored princess. The palace switchboard was overwhelmed with calls from journalists seeking additional information, and the usual calm atmosphere of the Royal Communications Office transformed into a hive of frantic activity. Kate herself was attending a charity event for children with special needs when she received word of the announcement. Her private secretary approached her discreetly during a break between meetings, whispering the news in her ear. For a moment, Kate's composure faltered, her eyes widening in genuine surprise before she quickly regained her professional demeanor. She had known that Charles was considering some form of recognition for her work, but she had not expected anything quite so significant. The charity event continued as planned, but Kate found it difficult to concentrate on the activities around her. Children laughed and played in the specially designed sensory garden, their joy providing a welcome distraction from the magnitude of what had just occurred. She knelt down to help a young boy with autism complete a puzzle, her training and natural empathy allowing her to focus on the task at hand, despite the swirling thoughts in her mind. Meanwhile, across London, Queen Camilla was hosting a tea party for representatives from various women's organizations when her own staff delivered the news. Unlike Kate's private notification, this information arrived via an urgent text message that caused Camilla to excuse herself from her guests. She retreated to a private sitting room, her hands trembling slightly as she read the official announcement on her phone. The color drained from Camilla's face as she realized the implications of Charles's decision. This was not just a simple honor or recognition, it was a statement about the future hierarchy of the royal family. By granting Kate this particular title, Charles was essentially elevating her status within the monarchy in a way that could overshadow other members of the family, including Camilla herself. Camilla's mind raced as she considered the historical significance of the title. The Duchess of Cambridge designation in its own right had been dormant for over a century, last held by a member of the extended royal family who had played a crucial role in supporting the monarchy during a period of significant change. By reviving this title for Kate, Charles was making a clear statement about her importance to the future of the institution. The Queen Consort's immediate instinct was to call Charles directly, but she knew that would be inappropriate given her current public commitments. Instead, she composed herself and returned to her guests, maintaining the gracious facade that had become second nature to her over the years. However, those who knew her well could detect the tension in her smile and the slight stiffness in her movements as she continued to fulfill her duties. Back at the charity event, Kate was beginning to understand the full scope of what had happened. The organizers had been informed by palace officials, and while they maintained their professionalism, there was an undeniable shift in the atmosphere. People began to treat her with even more deference than usual, and she could see the excitement in their eyes as they realized they were witnessing a historic moment. As the afternoon progressed, reaction to the announcement began to pour in from around the world. Royal experts appeared on television programs to discuss the significance of the decision, with opinions ranging from enthusiastic support to cautious skepticism. Many praised Charles for recognizing Kate's contributions to the monarchy and for taking steps to modernize the institution. Others questioned the wisdom of creating new precedents that could complicate the traditional line of succession. The British public's reaction was largely positive, with many expressing approval for Kate's recognition. Social media posts celebrated her work with various charities and her role as a mother and royal representative. Hashtags supporting the decision began trending, and fan accounts shared photos and videos highlighting Kate's most memorable public appearances over the years. However, not everyone was pleased with the development. Some traditionalists argued that the monarchy should not be making such significant changes without broader consultation. Royal biographers and historians debated whether Charles had overstepped his authority or whether this was exactly the kind of bold leadership the monarchy needed to remain relevant in the 21st century. William spent the afternoon in meetings related to his environmental initiatives, but he found himself constantly checking his phone for updates on the public reaction to his wife's new title. He felt proud of the recognition Kate was receiving, but also concerned about the additional pressure it would place on her shoulders. The Prince of Wales understood better than anyone how challenging royal life could be, and he worried about the increased scrutiny that would inevitably follow. As evening approached, palace staff worked overtime to manage the flood of interview requests and media inquiries. The communications team had prepared for a significant response, but the global interest exceeded their expectations. International news outlets were picking up the story, and royal correspondents from around the world were requesting additional background information and expert commentary. Kate's protection officers noticed the increased attention from photographers and royal watchers as she concluded her charity visit. The usual small group of royal enthusiasts who often gathered to catch glimpses of family members had grown into a substantial crowd. Police had to establish additional barriers to ensure safe passage for the princess as she departed the venue. The drive back to Kensington Palace gave Kate her first opportunity to fully process what had occurred. She called William to discuss the announcement, their conversation mixing excitement with apprehension about what lay ahead. They both understood that this recognition would bring new opportunities to advance their charitable work and public service, but it would also mean increased expectations and closer scrutiny of their every move. As the day drew to a close, palace officials prepared briefing materials for the following day's media coverage. They anticipated a flood of follow-up questions about the decision-making process, the historical precedents, and the implications for other members of the royal family. The careful choreography of royal communications would be put to the test as they sought to control the narrative and ensure that the focus remained on Kate's contributions rather than any potential family tensions. Charles, meanwhile, spent the evening reviewing reports about the public reaction to his decision. While he was pleased with the generally positive response, he was also acutely aware that the most challenging conversations were yet to come. He knew that Camilla would want to discuss the matter privately, and he steeled himself for what would likely be a difficult conversation about his unilateral decision to grant Kate such a significant honor. The confrontation that palace staff had been dreading finally occurred 3 days after the announcement. Camilla had maintained her composure in public, attending scheduled engagements and fulfilling her royal duties with her usual professionalism. However, behind closed doors, her frustration had been building with each passing hour. The Queen Consort had expected Charles to consult with her on such a significant decision, and his failure to do so felt like both a personal slight and a professional oversight. The meeting took place in Charles's private apartments at Clarence House, away from the prying eyes of staff and the ever-present threat of media intrusion. Camilla had requested the private audience through the proper channels, but everyone involved understood the gravity of the situation. The king's private secretary had cleared his afternoon schedule, ensuring that the conversation could proceed without interruption. Camilla entered the room with her characteristic poise, but Charles could immediately sense the tension radiating from her. She had chosen her outfit carefully, wearing a deep navy blue dress that conveyed both authority and seriousness. Her jewelry was minimal but significant, including a brooch that had belonged to Queen Elizabeth, a subtle reminder of royal traditions and protocols. Charles stood as she entered, a gesture of respect that had become automatic after years of marriage. However, the usual warmth in his greeting was replaced by a cautious formality that reflected his awareness of the storm that was about to break. He gestured toward the comfortable seating area where they often held their private discussions, but Camilla remained standing, her posture rigid with barely contained emotion. The silence stretched between them for several moments before Camilla finally spoke. Her voice was controlled but carried an edge that Charles had rarely heard in their private conversations. She began by acknowledging Kate's contributions to the royal family and her admiration for the princess's work. However, she quickly moved to the heart of her concerns about the process and implications of Charles's decision. Camilla expressed her shock at learning about such a significant development through official channels rather than from her husband directly. She had always believed that major decisions affecting the monarchy would be discussed between them, particularly given her role as queen consort. The fact that Charles had chosen to exclude her from this process felt like a fundamental breakdown in their partnership and their shared approach to royal duties. Charles listened without interruption, understanding that Camilla needed to express her feelings before any productive discussion could take place. He had anticipated this reaction and had spent considerable time preparing his explanation. However, seeing the hurt in his wife's eyes made him realize that his decision had created a rift that would not be easily repaired. When Camilla finished speaking, Charles attempted to explain his reasoning. He emphasized that the decision had been made based purely on merit and the future needs of the monarchy. Kate's popularity with the public, her successful handling of various royal duties, and her potential to help modernize the institution had all factored into his thinking. He insisted that the decision was not intended to diminish Camilla's role or contributions. However, Camilla was not satisfied with this explanation. She pointed out that the timing and manner of the announcement had created an impression that Kate was being elevated above other family members, including herself. The media coverage had already begun to draw comparisons and create hierarchies that could undermine the unity and effectiveness of the royal family's work. The queen consort also raised concerns about the precedent that Charles's unilateral decision-making could set for future royal announcements. She argued that such significant changes to royal titles and status should involve consultation with senior family members and trusted advisors. The monarchy's strength had always come from its collective approach to major decisions, and Charles's solo action threatened to undermine this tradition. As the conversation continued, both Charles and Camilla began to reveal deeper concerns about their respective roles within the evolving monarchy. Camilla had worked tirelessly to overcome the controversies of her past and establish herself as a respected member of the royal family. She feared that Kate's elevation could overshadow her own contributions and reduce her influence within the institution. Charles, meanwhile, defended his vision for the monarchy's future. He believed that bold decisions were necessary to ensure the institution's survival in a rapidly changing world. The younger generation of royals, led by William and Kate, represented the monarchy's best hope for maintaining public support and relevance. His decision to honor Kate was part of a broader strategy to position the royal family for success in the coming decades. The discussion grew more heated as both sides became more entrenched in their positions. Camilla accused Charles of being influenced by public opinion polls and media pressure, rather than making decisions based on royal tradition and protocol. She suggested that his desire to appear modern and progressive was causing him to abandon the principles that had guided the monarchy for centuries. Charles countered by arguing that adaptation and evolution were essential for the monarchy's survival. He pointed to his mother's successful reign as an example of how the institution could honor its traditions while embracing necessary changes. Queen Elizabeth had made difficult decisions throughout her reign, often in the face of criticism from traditionalists, and history had proven her wisdom. The argument reached its peak when Camilla questioned whether Charles's decision had been influenced by his desire to ensure a smooth transition of power to William and Kate. She suggested that by elevating Kate's status, Charles was effectively acknowledging that the next generation was better equipped to lead the monarchy than the current one. This accusation struck at the heart of Charles's insecurities about his own reign and his place in royal history. For a moment, the room fell silent, as both parties absorbed the implications of what had been said. The accusations and counter-accusations had revealed fault lines in their relationship that went beyond this single decision. Questions about authority, influence, and the future direction of the monarchy had been brought into sharp focus. Charles was the first to speak, his voice softer and more conciliatory than before. He acknowledged that he should have consulted with Camilla before making such a significant announcement. While he stood by his decision regarding Kate's title, he admitted that his handling of the process had been flawed and had unnecessarily created tension within the family. Camilla appreciated this acknowledgement, but made it clear that the damage had already been done. The public perception of her role within the monarchy had been affected, and rebuilding that perception would require careful management and strategic communication. She demanded assurances that future decisions of similar magnitude would be made collaboratively, with full consultation and consideration of all perspectives. The meeting concluded with both parties agreeing to work together to minimize the negative impact of the controversy on the royal family's public image. However, the underlying tensions remained unresolved, and both Charles and Camilla understood that their relationship had been fundamentally changed by this confrontation. The trust and partnership that had developed over years of marriage and shared royal duties would need to be rebuilt from the ground up. In the days following the tense confrontation between Charles and Camilla, the ripple effects of their disagreement began to spread throughout the royal household. Palace staff, who had developed an acute sensitivity to the subtle dynamics between family members, noticed the change in atmosphere immediately. The usual coordinated schedules and joint appearances that characterized the king and queen consort's public duties became noticeably strained. Kate, meanwhile, found herself caught in an uncomfortable position. While she was grateful for the recognition that Charles had bestowed upon her, she was also acutely aware of the tensions it had created within the family. Her relationship with Camilla had always been cordial but not particularly warm, and she sensed that the situation had made things even more complicated. The princess decided to take a proactive approach to address the growing tension. She arranged a private meeting with Camilla, hoping to clear the air and prevent any lasting damage to family relationships. The meeting was scheduled to take place at Camilla's private residence. Away from the formal atmosphere of the official royal palaces, Kate arrived at the appointed time, bringing with her a carefully chosen gift, a first-edition book about royal gardens that she knew would appeal to Camilla's interests. The gesture was intended to demonstrate respect and goodwill, but she was uncertain whether it would be well received given the circumstances. Camilla welcomed Kate with her usual politeness, but there was an unmistakable coolness in her manner. They settled in the conservatory, surrounded by Camilla's beloved plants and flowers, which provided a peaceful backdrop for what both women knew would be a difficult conversation. Kate began by acknowledging that she understood the awkward position her new title had created. She emphasized that she had not sought this recognition and had been as surprised by Charles' announcement as everyone else. Her words were carefully chosen, aimed at reassuring Camilla that she harbored no ambitions to upset the established hierarchy within the royal family. However, Camilla's response revealed the depth of her concerns. She explained that the issue was not about Kate personally, but about the broader implications of Charles's decision-making process. The queen consort had spent years carefully building her role within the monarchy, and she felt that Charles's unilateral action had undermined her position and influence. As their conversation continued, both women began to open up about their experiences as outsiders who had married into the royal family. Kate spoke about the challenges of adapting to royal life and the constant pressure to prove herself worthy of her position. Camilla shared her own struggles with public acceptance and the long journey she had traveled to earn respect and legitimacy. Despite their different backgrounds and experiences, They found common ground in their shared understanding of the unique pressures that came with royal life. Both had faced intense media scrutiny, public criticism, and the challenge of carving out meaningful roles within an ancient institution. This mutual understanding began to soften the tension between them, creating space for a more honest and productive dialogue. Kate took the opportunity to address some of the rumors and speculation that had been circulating in the media about competition between different members of the royal family. She assured Camilla that she had no intention of competing for influence or attention, and that she viewed their roles as complementary rather than competitive. Camilla appreciated Kate's directness and began to share her own perspective on the situation. She explained that her concerns were not driven by jealousy or personal animosity, but by practical worries about the impact on the monarchy's effectiveness. The royal family's strength had always come from its ability to present a united front, and public perception of internal conflicts could undermine their collective ability to serve the nation. The conversation took a more strategic turn as both women discussed ways to manage the fallout from Charles's announcement. They agreed that the most important priority was to prevent any public display of family tensions. The media was already scrutinizing every interaction between family members for signs of discord, and any hint of conflict would be amplified and exploited. Kate suggested that they could use their upcoming joint engagements to demonstrate unity and mutual support. By appearing together at public events and showing obvious signs of collaboration and friendship, they could help counteract the narrative of competition that some media outlets were promoting. Camilla agreed with this approach but emphasized the need for authenticity in their interactions. The public and the media had become increasingly sophisticated at detecting staged or artificial displays of harmony. Any attempt to present a false image of their relationship would likely backfire and create even more negative publicity. As their meeting progressed, both women began to develop a deeper appreciation for each other's perspectives and challenges. Kate gained insight into the complexities of Camilla's position as queen consort and the delicate balance she had to maintain between supporting Charles and establishing her own identity within the monarchy. Camilla, in turn, began to understand the genuine nature of Kate's commitment to royal service and her lack of personal ambition beyond fulfilling her duties effectively. She recognized that Kate's popularity and success were assets that could benefit the entire royal family if properly managed and channeled. The conversation eventually turned to the broader question of the monarchy's future and the roles that different family members would play in its evolution. Both women acknowledged that change was inevitable and necessary, but they also agreed that such changes should be managed carefully to preserve the institution's stability and effectiveness. Kate expressed her willingness to work within established protocols and to defer to more senior family members when appropriate. She emphasized that her primary goal was to support William in his role as heir to the throne and to contribute to the royal family's collective mission of service to the nation. Camilla found this reassuring and began to see potential benefits in Kate's elevated status. A stronger and more prominent Princess of Wales could help attract younger audiences to the monarchy and demonstrate its continued relevance to contemporary British society. Rather than viewing Kate's recognition as a threat, Camilla began to consider how it might be leveraged for the monarchy's benefit. By the end of their meeting, both women had reached a tentative understanding about how to move forward. While the underlying tensions created by Charles's unilateral decision had not been completely resolved, they had established a framework for managing their relationship and presenting a united front to the public. Kate left the meeting feeling more confident about her position within the family and her ability to navigate the complex dynamics that defined royal life. Camilla, while still frustrated with Charles's handling of the situation, felt more optimistic about her ability to maintain her influence and continue her important work as queen consort. The meeting marked a turning point in their relationship and set the stage for a more collaborative approach to their shared royal duties. However, both women understood that the real test would come in the weeks and months ahead, as they worked together to demonstrate that the royal family remained united and focused on serving the British people, despite the recent controversies. The first major test of the newly negotiated peace between Kate and Camilla came sooner than either had anticipated. A high-profile state dinner was scheduled for the following week, hosting the President of France and his wife. This event would be closely watched by international media and would provide the perfect opportunity for the royal family to demonstrate their unity or reveal any lingering tensions. Palace protocol dictated that both Kate and Camilla would play prominent roles in the evening's festivities. The seating arrangements, speaking order, and ceremonial duties had all been planned months in advance, but Charles's recent decision had complicated the traditional hierarchy. Palace staff worked frantically behind the scenes to adjust arrangements while maintaining the proper diplomatic protocols. Kate spent considerable time preparing for the event, understanding that her every gesture and interaction would be scrutinized for signs of the family dynamics. Her stylist team worked to select an outfit that would be appropriate for her new status, while remaining respectful of Camilla's position as queen consort. The choice of jewelry became particularly significant, as royal jewelry often conveyed subtle messages about status and favor within the family. Meanwhile, Camilla faced her own challenges in preparing for the evening. She had originally planned to wear a particular tiara that held special significance in royal history, but she now wondered whether her choice might be interpreted as an attempt to assert her superiority over Kate. Every decision seemed fraught with potential for misinterpretation. William found himself in the unusual position of mediating between various family members and palace officials who were concerned about the evening's success. His wife's new title had elevated her status within the royal hierarchy, but it had also created new complexities in managing family relationships and public appearances. The French delegation arrived at Buckingham Palace with great fanfare, unaware of the underlying tensions within the British royal family. The president and his wife were focused on the diplomatic importance of their visit and the economic agreements that would be signed during their stay. However, their staff had been briefed on recent developments in the British monarchy and were prepared to observe and report on any unusual dynamics. As the evening began, palace staff watched nervously as the royal family gathered for the pre-dinner reception. Charles appeared confident and relaxed, greeting the French delegation with his characteristic warmth and diplomatic skill. However, those who knew him well could detect subtle signs of tension in his manner. Camilla's entrance was masterfully orchestrated, her years of experience in royal protocol evident in every carefully calculated movement. She wore an elegant gown in royal blue, complemented by sapphire jewelry that emphasized her status as queen consort. Her warm greeting of the French First Lady demonstrated her skill in diplomatic relationships and her comfort in representing the British monarchy. Kate's arrival drew considerable attention from both the assembled guests and the media, representatives who had been granted access to photograph the early portions of the evening. Her choice of a sophisticated emerald green dress and understated jewelry struck exactly the right note, conveying respect for tradition while reflecting her contemporary style. The crucial moment came when Kate and Camilla encountered each other in the receiving line. Palace staff held their breath as the two women approached each other, knowing that their interaction would be captured by photographers and analyzed by royal watchers around the world. However, their private meeting had prepared them well for this moment. Camilla extended her hand to Kate with a genuine smile, and Kate responded with equal warmth and appropriate deference to Camilla's senior position. Their brief conversation appeared natural and friendly, giving no hint of the tensions that had existed just days earlier. The photographers captured images that would later be interpreted as evidence of family harmony and mutual respect. Throughout the dinner, both women navigated their roles with professional skill. Camilla engaged the French president in conversations about environmental policy and cultural exchange, drawing on her extensive experience in international diplomacy. Kate charmed the French First Lady with discussions about children's education and charitable work, topics that had become central to her royal identity. The evening's success was further enhanced by the natural chemistry between William and Kate, whose partnership had been strengthened rather than complicated by her new title. Their interactions demonstrated the strong foundation of their marriage and their shared commitment to royal service. The French guests were clearly impressed by the younger generation's ability to represent British values and interests. Charles watched the proceedings with satisfaction, seeing his decision to honor Kate validated by her performance throughout the evening. She had handled her elevated status with grace and maturity, contributing to the monarchy's diplomatic objectives while maintaining appropriate respect for established protocols. His gamble on her potential appeared to be paying dividends. However, the real test came during the toasts and speeches that traditionally concluded such events. The speaking order had been carefully arranged to reflect the new dynamics within the royal family, while maintaining diplomatic courtesy. Charles delivered the main address welcoming the French delegation, followed by responses from the visiting dignitaries. Camilla was given the honor of proposing a toast to Franco-British friendship, a role that emphasized her position as queen consort, while allowing her to demonstrate her diplomatic skills. Her speech was eloquent and well-received, reinforcing her value to the monarchy and her ability to represent British interests effectively. Kate's contribution came in the form of a brief but memorable presentation about cultural exchanges between British and French young people. Her natural communication skills and genuine passion for youth development shone through, creating a positive impression on both the international guests and the British officials present. The evening concluded with informal conversations in the palace's staterooms, where the real diplomatic work often took place. Kate found herself engaged in substantive discussions about educational policy with senior French officials, demonstrating that her new title came with real responsibilities and opportunities to influence important issues. Camilla, meanwhile, used her conversations with the French delegation to advance several charitable initiatives that were important to her personal royal mission. Her experience and established relationships proved invaluable in moving these projects forward, showing that her role remained central to the monarchy's effectiveness. As the French guests departed and the royal family retired for the evening, palace staff began their post-event analysis. The general consensus was that the evening had been a diplomatic success, with no obvious signs of internal family tensions. The photographs and media coverage would likely focus on the positive aspects of the royal family's performance, rather than any underlying controversies. Kate returned to her apartments feeling confident about her ability to fulfill her new responsibilities. The evening had provided valuable experience in handling the increased attention and expectations that came with her elevated status. She had proven to herself and others that she could rise to the occasion when required. Camilla, too, felt satisfied with the evening's outcome. Her fears about being overshadowed by Kate's new prominence had proved unfounded, at least for this event. She had demonstrated her continued importance to the monarchy's mission and her ability to work effectively alongside other family members. Despite recent tensions, Charles reflected on the evening with a sense of vindication about his controversial decision. The successful management of the state dinner provided evidence that the royal family could adapt to new circumstances while maintaining their effectiveness and unity. The monarchy's future appeared secure in the hands of its current and next generation of leaders. Several weeks after the successful state dinner, an unexpected crisis emerged that would test the royal family's newly stabilized relationships in ways none of them had anticipated. A major British newspaper had obtained leaked documents from within the palace walls, revealing details about the decision-making process behind Kate's title and the subsequent family tensions that had followed. The story broke on a Sunday morning, splashed across the front page with sensational headlines about royal feuds and secret meetings. The article contained remarkably accurate quotes from private conversations and detailed descriptions of the confrontation between Charles and Camilla. Palace security officials were immediately tasked with identifying the source of the leak, while communications staff scrambled to develop a response strategy. Kate discovered the news while enjoying a quiet breakfast with William and their children at their country home. William's phone began buzzing incessantly with calls from palace officials, and within minutes their peaceful morning had transformed into a crisis management situation. The couple quickly arranged for the children to be cared for by their nanny while they dealt with the unfolding situation. The leaked information painted Camilla in a particularly unflattering light, portraying her as jealous and power-hungry in her opposition to Kate's elevation. The quotes attributed to her, while not entirely inaccurate, had been presented without context and made her appear petty and self-serving. The damage to her carefully cultivated public image was immediate and severe. Camilla was attending a church service when her protection officers received urgent instructions to escort her back to Clarence's house immediately. The drive back to London was tense, with her private secretary briefing her on the newspaper coverage via secure phone calls. By the time she arrived at her residence, media vehicles had already gathered outside, and photographers were positioned to capture any sign of her emotional state. Charles found himself in the most difficult position of all. The leaked documents revealed not only his failure to consult with Camilla, but also some unflattering assessments of various family members' capabilities and contributions. His private thoughts about modernizing the monarchy and his concerns about public opinion were now public knowledge, potentially undermining his authority and judgment. The immediate priority was damage control. Palace communications experts worked frantically to craft a response that would minimize the harm, while avoiding any confirmation of the leaked information's accuracy. However, the level of detail in the newspaper report made it impossible to dismiss as entirely fabricated. William and Kate made the decision to return to London immediately, understanding that their presence would be crucial in managing the crisis. The drive back to the city gave them time to discuss strategy and prepare for what would undoubtedly be intense media scrutiny in the coming days. Kate felt particularly responsible for the situation, knowing that her title had been the catalyst for all the subsequent problems. The first emergency meeting was convened at Buckingham Palace within hours of the story's publication. Charles, Camilla, William, and Kate gathered in the private apartments, away from staff members who might themselves be under suspicion as potential sources of the leak. The atmosphere was tense, with everyone aware that their previous efforts to maintain family unity had been severely undermined. Charles began the meeting by acknowledging that his handling of Kate's title had created the conditions for this crisis. However, he also emphasized that the leak itself represented a serious security breach that could have implications far beyond this particular incident. The fact that someone with access to highly confidential information had chosen to betray that trust was deeply concerning. Camilla's primary concern was repairing her public image, which had been severely damaged by the newspaper's portrayal of her reaction to Kate's title. She felt that the selective quotes and lack of context had made her appear unreasonable and vindictive. Her years of work to overcome past controversies and establish herself as a respected member of the royal family seemed to have been undone overnight. Kate offered to make a public statement, taking responsibility for any family tensions and absolving Camilla of any blame. However, palace communications experts advised against this approach, arguing that it would only draw more attention to the story and potentially create additional problems. The preferred strategy was to maintain dignified silence while working behind the scenes to counter the negative narrative. William found himself in the uncomfortable position of defending both his wife and his stepmother, while also supporting his father's leadership. His perspective as the heir to the throne gave him unique insights into the long-term implications of the crisis, and he emphasized the need to focus on protecting the monarchy's reputation rather than individual reputations. The investigation into the source of the leak became a top priority for palace security. The level of access required to obtain the leaked information suggested that the perpetrator was someone with significant clearance and regular contact with senior family members. This realization created an atmosphere of suspicion and paranoia that affected relationships throughout the royal household. As the day progressed, additional media outlets picked up the story, each adding their own analysis and speculation about the royal family's internal dynamics. Royal correspondents who had been covering the family for years offered their perspectives on the significance of the revelations and their potential impact on the monarchy's future. Social media platforms exploded with commentary about the leaked information, with public opinion divided between those who sympathized with different family members. Kate's supporters argued that she had been unfairly caught in the middle of family politics, while Camilla's defenders claimed that she had been misrepresented and taken out of context. The international media also began covering the story, with royal correspondents from around the world offering their analysis of the British monarchy's apparent instability. The timing was particularly unfortunate, coming just weeks after the successful state dinner that had seemed to demonstrate family unity and effectiveness. By evening, palace officials had developed a comprehensive strategy for managing the crisis. The plan involved a coordinated series of public appearances and statements designed to demonstrate family unity, while avoiding any direct confirmation or denial of the leaked information. Each family member would have specific roles to play in rebuilding public confidence. The psychological impact of the leak on individual family members was also significant. Kate felt guilt about being the inadvertent cause of so much controversy, while Camilla struggled with anger about her portrayal and concern about her future effectiveness as queen consort. Charles grappled with questions about his leadership and decision-making processes. William emerged as a stabilizing force during this period, using his position as heir to encourage unity and forward-looking solutions. His marriage to Kate had given him insights into both the challenges of adapting to royal life and the importance of supporting family members through difficult periods. The crisis also highlighted the vulnerability of the royal family to security, breaches and unauthorized disclosures. Palace officials began reviewing protocols for handling sensitive information and limiting access to confidential discussions. The investigation into the leak's source continued with increased urgency and resources. As the first day of the crisis concluded, all family members understood that the coming weeks would be crucial in determining whether they could overcome this setback and restore public confidence in the monarchy. The successful management of previous challenges had prepared them for dealing with adversity, but the personal nature of this crisis made it particularly difficult to navigate. The leaked documents had revealed not just policy disagreements, but personal feelings and private conversations that were never intended for public consumption. Rebuilding trust within the family while also managing public perception would require careful coordination and genuine commitment from all involved parties. 3 months had passed since the devastating leak that had threatened to tear apart the royal family's carefully maintained unity. The investigation had eventually identified a disgruntled former palace aide as the source, leading to legal proceedings and a comprehensive review of security protocols. However, the real work of healing the relationships and rebuilding public trust had fallen to the family members themselves. The turning point came during a private family gathering at Balmoral Castle in Scotland. Away from the pressures of official duties and media scrutiny, Charles, Camilla, William, and Kate were able to have the honest conversations that had been needed since the beginning of the crisis. The Scottish Highlands provided a peaceful backdrop for difficult discussions about trust, communication, and the future of their relationships. Charles used this opportunity to make a formal apology to Camilla for his handling of Kate's title announcement. He acknowledged that his failure to consult with her had been disrespectful and had undermined their partnership. More importantly, he committed to establishing new protocols for major decisions that would ensure proper consultation and consideration of all perspectives. Camilla, in turn, expressed her regret about some of the comments attributed to her in the leaked documents. While she maintained that her concerns had been legitimate, she acknowledged that her expression of them had sometimes been inappropriate and hurtful. She offered a genuine apology to Kate for any pain her words had caused. Kate's response demonstrated the maturity and grace that had characterized her approach throughout the crisis. She acknowledged her own role in the situation and expressed understanding for Camilla's position. Rather than dwelling on past grievances, she focused on building a stronger foundation for their future working relationship. William played a crucial mediating role during these conversations, helping all parties to see beyond their immediate concerns to the broader implications for the monarchy. His perspective as the future king gave him unique insights into the importance of family unity and the need to present a cohesive front to the public. The family decided to implement several concrete changes to prevent similar crises in the future. A new consultation process was established for major decisions affecting the royal family, ensuring that all senior members would have input into significant announcements. Regular private meetings were scheduled to maintain open communication and address concerns before they could escalate into conflicts. Most importantly, they agreed to present a united front in public while continuing to work through any remaining issues in private. The damage caused by the leaked documents had demonstrated the importance of maintaining confidentiality and trust. Within the family circle, the first public test of their renewed unity came during a major charity event that all 4 family members attended together. The media watched closely for any signs of tension or awkwardness, but were instead treated to a display of genuine warmth and cooperation. Kate and Camilla were seen engaging in animated conversation, while Charles and William worked together seamlessly in their official duties. The photographs from the event told a powerful story of reconciliation and unity that helped to counter the negative narrative created by the leaked documents. Palace communications experts capitalized on this positive coverage to begin rebuilding the royal family's reputation for stability and effectiveness. Kate's performance during this period was particularly noteworthy. Rather than allowing the controversy to diminish her confidence or enthusiasm, she threw herself into her royal duties with renewed energy. Her work with children's charities and mental health organizations continued to earn praise and demonstrated the wisdom of Charles's decision. To honor her contributions, Camilla also used this period to strengthen her own position within the monarchy. Her involvement in literacy programs and support for victims of domestic violence gained increased recognition, helping to restore her public image and demonstrate her ongoing value to the royal mission. The resolution of the family crisis had unexpected benefits for the monarchy as a whole. The public's glimpse into the human side of the royal family, including their struggles and conflicts, actually increased sympathy and support in some quarters. Many people appreciated seeing that the royals faced the same kinds of family dynamics and communication challenges as ordinary families. Charles emerged from the crisis with enhanced leadership skills and a deeper understanding of the importance of inclusive decision-making. His willingness to acknowledge his mistakes and implement changes demonstrated the kind of adaptability that would be crucial for the monarchy's future success. The investigation into the security breach had also led to important improvements in palace protocols and staff vetting procedures. While the leak had been damaging in the short term, it had ultimately strengthened the royal family's defenses against future unauthorized disclosures. International observers noted the royal family's successful navigation of the crisis as evidence of the monarchy's resilience and adaptability. The ability to overcome internal conflicts and present a united front reinforced confidence in the institution's stability and effectiveness. As the year drew to a close, palace officials conducted a comprehensive review of the events surrounding Kate's title and the subsequent crisis. The lessons learned were incorporated into new training programs for royal staff and updated protocols for managing sensitive information and family communications. Kate's elevated status had ultimately been accepted by both the family and the public, with her new responsibilities integrated seamlessly into the royal family's collective mission. The initial controversy had given way to recognition that Charles's decision, despite its flawed implementation, had been fundamentally sound. Camilla's role as queen consort was also strengthened by her handling of the crisis and her commitment to working collaboratively with other family members. Her experience and diplomatic skills remained valuable assets to the monarchy, and her relationship with Kate had evolved into a genuine partnership. The family's Christmas celebrations that year were marked by a genuine sense of unity and mutual respect that had been hard-won through months of difficult conversations and careful relationship building. The children in the family, particularly William and Kate's offspring, benefited from seeing their parents and grandparents work through challenges with maturity and grace. Looking ahead, all family members understood that their strengthened relationships and improved communication processes would be crucial for navigating future challenges. The monarchy would continue to face pressures for modernization and adaptation, but they now had proven mechanisms for managing change while maintaining unity. The story of Kate's title and the family crisis it generated had ultimately become a testament to the royal family's ability to evolve and grow stronger through adversity. The transparency forced upon them by the leaked documents had been painful but had also cleared the air and created opportunities for more honest and productive relationships. Palace historians would later note this period as a significant moment in the modern monarchy's development, when traditional approaches to family dynamics and decision-making were updated to reflect contemporary expectations for consultation and collaboration. The resolution of the crisis had set important precedents for how future challenges would be addressed. As Charles looked back on the events of the year, he felt a sense of satisfaction about the ultimate outcome, despite the initial difficulties. His decision to honor Kate had been vindicated by her continued excellent service, while the family's successful navigation of the subsequent crisis had demonstrated their collective strength and commitment to the monarchy's future success.